Hey everyone, Jeff here at StopThePirates.blogspot.com. It's January 8th, 2020. And if you've never read this or heard this, Montgomery versus Daly, it'll probably blow your mind. It did me when I first read it a long time ago. It's been called the most astounding sleight of hand ever devised, the creation of money privatized and usurped from Congress by a private banking cartel, foreign bankers, international bankers. And these people don't have any loyalty to any one country or anything like that, like the lower serfs do. Like, I think Mexicans have just a really deep-seated, I don't know, for their country, just a real verve, or what's the word? I don't know. And Americans do too. Americans do too. And they're willing to send their kids and daughters and sons over to foreign lands to be killed and legs blown off for, so that ExxonMobil and Raytheon and the military industrial complex corporations can make money. And they have to make money, and they have to make more money than they made last year, because that's the law. But anyway, most people think money is issued by fiat through the government, but that's not the case, except for coins, which compose only about 1/1000th of the total U.S. money supply. All other money is created by private banks. Federal Reserve notes, dollar bills, are issued by the Federal Reserve, a private banking corporation, and lent to the government at interest, creating a huge debt to the nation. A debt the nation can never get out of unless the Federal Reserve Act of 1933 is abolished. However, Federal Reserve notes and coins together compose less than 3% of the money supply. The other 97% is created by commercial banks as loans and backed by nothing. So you don't believe banks create the money they lend? Neither did the jury in a landmark Minnesota case until they heard the evidence. First National Bank versus Montgomery, First National Bank of Montgomery versus Daly, court case in 1969, was a courtroom drama worthy of a movie script. Every American that is facing a housing crisis should take note. Defendant Jerome Daly opposed the bank's foreclosure on his $14,000 home mortgage loan on the ground that there was no consideration for the loan. Consideration is the thing exchanged, is an essential element of a contract. All contracts need an offer, acceptance, and a consideration to be valid. Here's where it gets interesting. Daly, an attorney representing himself, argued that the bank had put up no real money for his loan. The courtroom proceedings were recorded by Associate Justice Bill Drexler, whose chief role, he said, was to keep order in a highly charged courtroom where the attorneys were threatening to fist fight. Drexler hadn't given much credence to the theory of the defense until Mr. Morgan, the bank's president, took the stand to everyone's surprise. Morgan admitted that the bank routinely created money out of thin air for its loans and that this was standard banking practice. It sounds like fraud to me, intoned presiding Justice Martin Mahoney amid nods from the jurors. In his court case memorandum, Justice Mahoney stated, plaintiff admitted that it, in combination with the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, did create the entire $14,000 in money and credit upon his own books by bookkeeping entry, that this was the consideration used to support the note dated May 8th, 1964, and the mortgage of the same date. The money and credit first came into existence when they created it. Mr. Morgan admitted that no United States law or statute existed which gave him the right to do this. A lawful consideration must exist and be tendered to support the note. And that's why when you go to get a mortgage and you file the 1003 application, which is your 3-page long application, it's a one-sided contract. It's just you. And what they're doing is they're going because you have this exemption account at one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks, and with an unlimited amount of credit to use. But see, the banks have a monopoly on these negotiable instruments called notes. So they're the ones that's going to say who can and who cannot, because the only thing they can do with the note is sell it to investors who are going to make money off you making your mortgage payments every month. So that's how it actually works. But yeah, there is no, well, let's get into it here. So the court rejected the bank's claim of foreclosure, and the defendant kept his house. To Daly, the implications were enormous. If bankers were indeed extending credit without consideration, without backing their loans with money they actually had in their vaults and were entitled to lend, a decision declaring that their loans void could topple the power base of the world, he wrote in his local news article. That's why you will never hear about this decision, which is legally sound. I mean, how are you going to get the president of a bank on the stand nowadays? Because no one's taking. It's like when the IRS sends you a letter, then nobody's signing it. No one's taking responsibility. It's just all bullshit. I mean, put the whole IRS on the stand, or like the state of whatever, the federal government, the United States is the plaintiff in all these criminal court cases. Well, who are they? And how were they injured? The decision, which is legally sound, has the effect of declaring all private mortgages on real and personal property and all U.S. and state bonds held by the Federal Reserve, national and state banks to be null and void. This amounts to an emancipation of this nation from personal, national, and state debt purportedly owed to this banking system. Every American owes it to himself to study this decision very carefully, for upon it hangs the question of freedom or slavery. And the truth, I mean, I won't even get into it here because it's so fucking deep. It takes forever to explain it. But there is a reason why this is happening. And the United States is a crown corporation. It's one of the three city states. And it just goes real freaking deep. And it's hard for people to even believe that, to get past where we are with the Federal Reserve Bank. And they don't have any idea what the national debt is and how everything works. But the truth of the matter is they're not really banks. They're just a maritime insurance company that stepped in when the country went bankrupt and said, we'll take over for you. We'll pay your debts, but it's going to cost you. Creditors control. Every dollar is borrowed into existence. That's why if you look at the back of your Social Security card, I ain't gonna harp on this, but you'll notice the letter A through L with an 8-digit account number corresponds to one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks in the 12 Federal Reserve system. You have an unlimited credit, so anytime a child is born in this country and they fill out the birth certificate, I'm being very general here how it works, but they issue dollar bills based on that, put them into the money supply. You know, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people laugh at this when I say this, but I mean, in law, everything is what it says, but it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. All debts. This note. So I should just be able to, however, how much the debt is, saying, send me a true bill and just attach this to it and go, there, I'm paid in full. Right? I don't know. I'll leave a link to this article down below. Also look into the Credit River money decision, and Modern Money Mechanics. Great articles. It tells you how the system works. And people get pissed off because they have to go to work for 40, 50 hours a week to earn this stuff, which is, I mean, just, that's why when you get a paycheck and you go to cash it, you're borrowing the money. That's why you have to pay income tax, right? You're going into debt. Go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com. There are remedies. It takes time. You got to figure it out. Start small. You got to crawl before you can walk. Thanks for listening. Like, share, and subscribe.